I certainly want to see Ukraine win this conflict. The people of Tennessee, the people of America want to see that result too. And I'd like to associate myself with the comments of our chairman about having a blueprint in place to understand the path to get there. I think that's responsible, and to the extent you're able to share that with us in this sort of setting or another, I would look forward to participating in that that goal. My real concern, and what I'd like to talk with you first about, is the magnitude of U.S. funding of this and the accountability associated with it. Right now, the United States is bearing the lion's share of the funding for the assistance, the military assistance to Ukraine. And we're doing that despite real concerns about accountability, about corruption. President Zelensky recently, very recently, dismissed senior officials over corruption concerns. And many Americans, certainly many Tennesseans that talk to me, are very concerned about a type of open-ended commitment to Ukraine. And again, this gets back to what the chairman was raising. Having a clear picture of where we're headed, I think, would be most useful. The other concern I hear about, though, greatly is where the United States is relative to other European nations. Now, the countries that are most proximate to, the border countries, have really stepped up and punched above their weight when you look at the share of their defense spending versus their GDP. But you have other major economies in Europe that aren't pulling their weight. And when you look at it relative to the United States, you've got countries like Germany, where the United States is paying double our GDP versus what the Germans are doing. We're doing 5x what France is spending as a percentage of GDP in terms of supporting this war. So my first question is, what are we doing as a nation? What are you doing specifically to try to encourage these large European allies who are far more proximate to the problem to step up and do more?
Thanks, Senator Hagerty. We should compare our statistics because actually we have throughout this war worked very hard with our coalition of some 50 partners, both on the security side and on the economic side, to ensure burden sharing. And our numbers indicate that our allies and partners around the world are carrying at least half of the burden, if not more, in some categories, including some of the things that are hard to calculate, like the millions, 10 million or more Ukrainian refugees in some of their cities. And the recent announcement by the Germans of Leopard tanks will make a significant increase to their particular contribution. But what
I know it was very painful getting the Germans to that point, but I appreciate the effort that went into to get that to happen.
And with regard to the longer term, as you know, we spoke about what's ahead for the Ukrainians, which is this strong push in the spring. And I think we'll see the results of that, and that'll give us a sense. But you know, what they've made clear is they cannot pause now. That will only favor Russia. And we want to put them in the best possible position so that whether this war ends on the battlefield, whether it ends with diplomacy or some combination, that they are sitting on a map that is far more advantageous for their long-term future.
Understood.
And that Putin feels the strategic failure.
I would just encourage continued efforts working with our European allies to get them to step up and find their way to the point that you just described where Germany got to the tank support. Please do more of that. Can I go to Presidential Drawdown Authority right now and what's happened there? I've watched this administration transfer billions of dollars worth of military equipment to Ukraine under the PDA. But I watch what's happening in Taiwan. And this is a source of frustration I think you and I may have discussed before. But right now, my understanding is that we have a $19 billion backlog, a years-long backlog of military equipment that's destined for Taiwan but is not yet there. I've spent a tremendous amount of time on our foreign military sales program here in America with our allies. The system does not work as well as it should. And I would very much appreciate the opportunity to hear from you if you have an immediate perspective, and then later perhaps a briefing on where we're going with that.
Senator, I'd like to come back to you on the specifics of Taiwan backlog, and perhaps not in this setting, but we agree with you that even as we support Ukraine and push back Russia, we have to strengthen Taiwan's defenses, and we are engaged in that intensively with the Pentagon.
Yeah, Secretary Wilder, any further comments on that?
No, simply to agree that the Pentagon is focused on the acute fight and importance of supporting Ukraine, but at the same time is learning lessons for support of Taiwan, and shares concern about supply chain issues and fulfilling of contracts, and has a focused working group led by the acquisition and sustainment portion of OSD to focus exactly on that.
I'll have my team reach out and arrange a update in the appropriate setting to follow up on this. Thank you both.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman.
Senator Schatz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. I'll start with Secretary